she seemed to be positive about my participation in the commission. It's not a huge time commitment as far as a meeting goes, although I understand there are other outside activities that go on, and I'm more than happy to participate in those and contribute in whatever way I can. Same thing applies to the planning board. I know I wasn't here when I was nominated a couple of weeks ago, and I apologize for that. But I did, when I lived in Salem, I was on the zoning board of adjustment for 3 years, 1 year as chair. And at the time we were building the mall at Rockingham Park, so we were a very busy zoning board during that time. So that's my background in sort of land use. I'm also was a practicing attorney. I'm still admitted in New Hampshire, although I don't practice. I work for the state now. But during my practice years, I did a lot of land use work over that time. And so I think I'm qualified. I have an interest. Prior to moving back to Hooksett last year, I lived in Hooksett, in the southern part of the town, for almost 11 years. Didn't get involved in town issues at the time, but have subsequently decided to try to help out and do whatever I can. So that's why I'm here. That's my basically my interest. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody on the council may
You have an impressive resume. Questions?
Thank you.
Question? Is our protocol to have a second on these nominations? I can't remember.
No,
it's just-
not a second, an appointment, yes, a nomination.
This is nomination, right?
And we made the nomination to the planning board at the last meeting.
So you can take action on the planning board, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chair, would be appropriate, since he had, my intentions last meeting was to nominate him as well, but since the confusion, would it be appropriate for me to offer that the council waives their rules and appoint Mr. Rogers for the Heritage Commission tonight?
I certainly don't have a problem with it unless somebody objects to that
If
process.
that's a motion, I'll second it.
Okay.
Yes, that would be a motion. Thank you, Nancy, for seconding that.
Any discussion on the motion to waive the rules and to appoint? No. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay. So we're ready to take action on the appointments for both committees, correct?
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint David Rogers to the Planning Board and to the Heritage Commission for the town of Hooksett.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Congratulations to both. You set a precedent, 2 in 1 day. Very good. We'll look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
My understanding, I know we've had some people who've expressed an interest in economic development. We haven't received an application or any applications for Parks and Recreation. Is that correct, Ellen? Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
I just on the subject of economic development and getting membership and so forth. Could you give us a history on regards to why the timeline is at 12 noon? Is there any chance to make it either earlier in the day? I understand a lot of conflicts at night, but I had a couple of candidates, and one of the things they said, well, noon, I work in Boston, I could do a morning thing. 2 of these people are involved in senior level management in regards to major consumer goods organizations, and I thought they'd have some impact, could have some impact in regards to.
That's a good question. Certainly we could bring it up at the next meeting. I think it was a convenience, a lot of local businessmen who didn't want to interrupt their day and wanted to do a noon meeting, but I don't think it's written in stone, certainly. I think they would, generally, I think people wanted to avoid an evening meeting, but if they wanted to make it mid-morning or whatever, that's certainly fine with me, but I'll bring it up to Mr. Alquist. Good suggestion. Yes?
Well, one of the things, it almost sounded like, though, something like a breakfast meeting might be good for these people if they wanted.
I mean, I don't know. If they could have just being kind to me, to say they didn't want to say no to me. But even myself, I try to get to the meetings that if they're linked up with today, then I usually can make them. Versus any other day, I really can't.
My suspicion would be that a breakfast meeting might work for a lot of reasons, and certainly we could suggest that. Okay. Schedule, yes?
I'm sorry. If I could ask if the people Councilor Lazat had in mind, if they were residents of Hooksett?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to scheduled appointments? You have a guest? They're going to make a presentation.
Oh, well, the town clerk is here, and I know that she also brought along the moderator and some folks from the supervisor of the checklist. So if you want to just come up and while she's coming up, just so folks know,
I might use that mic. We don't want to get criticized for not using the mic.
just so folks know, we're trying to continue to bring people in. At the November 1st meeting, the tax collector is going to come in, which we think is good timing because that's about when the tax bills are going to go out. It'll be out about around that time. In the second meeting in November, not November 1st, first meeting in November, whatever the date is on that, second meeting in November, which is the 30th, we want to remember we're doing it the 5th instead of the 4th because of Thanksgiving. The Heritage Commission is going to come in. I'm going to talk to Kathy about that. And then on the first meeting in December, the CIP people have asked to come in because that's when they'll be finishing up, and they were wanting to come in this first meeting. So that's kind of our schedule for the next several meetings.
Okay, great.
Good evening. I'd like to thank you all for having me come. I know most of you know
But
me.
introduce yourself to the record.
I'm Linda Piscatola. I would be your town clerk. I had a conversation with Dean the other day concerning the budget process, and I want you all to understand that for the past budget year, or the current budget year, the budget was built on a lot of suppositions. Here we go. All right.
There you go.
It's alive. Anyway, I just wanted to touch base with some of you to let you understand some of the challenges that we've had. First of all, the budget was built on no history because, as some of you may or may not know, the town clerk and the tax collector were one and the same for very many years. And it was just last year that they decided to split the two positions. The split is a little bit unorthodox as compared to most communities, but it's something that I think can work. Part of my budget is, well, a big part of my job is town elections and to make sure that everything passes through cohesively, and I work with the town moderator as well as the supervisors of the checklist. This year, there were a few challenges for me because there were items from one that I hadn't anticipated, and they hadn't given me the information because they didn't understand the process either. And having said that, I'm sure that you may see that my budget may be a little bit overextended this year. Another issue was that this is an election year coming, or we have the primary in this fiscal year, and because it's a presidential primary, the poll workers and whatnot are going to be a little more extensive than what our normal needs are. I spoke with Dean, and I said that I felt that because I don't have or had not had final say or approval of items that were hitting my budget, I felt that I couldn't be held responsible for something that I can't control. And so I asked him, and which is one of the reasons why I'm here, for you to consider perhaps having a separate budget for the moderator and the supervisors of the checklist. If for whatever reason you don't feel that comfortable doing that, or you don't feel that it's appropriate, I am certainly willing to work with them. As you know, we have a new town moderator, and I'm willing to work with him and with the supervisors of the checklist to make sure that the budget for the upcoming year, which will include the presidential election, will be a little bit more accurate. But I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention for you to have a full understanding that I'm just not going out and spending money willy-nilly. I really hold it tight. but there are some things that were beyond my control. So I guess I just wanted you to have a clearer understanding of what the issues were, and perhaps maybe some resolution to this. But if not, to know that I'm certainly willing to work with them to see if we can't bring it into line. So having said all of that, does anyone have any questions of me?
Questions?
Sure.
Yes.
I actually have a question for Dean. The question I would have is there a way in which to compartmentalize that portion of, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's not unusual. I believe, and Christine's here, and she can tell me if I'm wrong. Christine's here, she can tell me if I'm wrong. I believe that the section in the budget, the MS7, is actually elections and registration, is what it's called. And it's not unusual to have different line items under that, one for the moderator, one for the supervisor of the checklist, one for the town clerk and voting booths and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certainly no reason not to do that.
Okay, I was going to say the voting booths and everything are in my budget, the maintenance, the AccuVote machine, all of that. There were just some extenuating circumstances that were unforeseen. So again, if they were to have their own discretionary spending, that would be great.
Sure. I'd like to ask a question. I guess the question then would be is, so you're pretty confident that you have a budget document in front of you or within that you use, or you extracted it?
I do have the budget
Right.
that I helped create last year, but again, it was not on history because we didn't really have any history.
Right.
And that was one of the challenges for me this year because there were things that happened that by law that had to happen through the supervisors of the checklist, which I had no knowledge of, but then it was a hit to my budget of $800, which I hadn't budgeted for. And little things like this that created a challenge. And so I'm very cognizant of costs, and I try to keep it as low as possible, but this was just something that was beyond my control. And I was a little upset, as I told Dean, because I wasn't asked to approve it. I wasn't told it was coming. I was told after the fact that it was hitting my budget.
Councilor Van Soy?
Oh, thank you. So I guess I have a question for Dr. Schenkel. Who is currently responsible for creating this part of the budget and presenting it to you? And if we were to make these changes, would that, I assume therefore there would be 2 other people responsible for creating and turning in a budget?
For each section, right? Every line, then you'd have a line for the moderator and you'd have a line for the supervisor of the checklist.
And that information would then come from other people, and it would be the other people responsible to turn that in and justify that to the council and the budget committee. And if I may, and I guess to the whole council and to her, I guess I don't understand the benefit of not having these 2 additional people come to you with what they would put as a line item, and then have you present the full budget as it is now.
Understand that, Nancy. And as I said, if the council feels that it is more appropriate to have it in my budget, I am willing to work with them, and I have no problem, working through and finding out what they feel their expenses are. But if it's a line item on my budget, I need to have the final say if it's going to hit my budget or not. That's my only concern.
Do you have a recommendation, Dr. Schenkel?
Well, I've got a few thoughts first. One of the reasons that I asked the town clerk to come in is so we could talk about it, and the moderator and supervisor checklist are here, because I think some of the things that they want to do aren't really unreasonable and probably should have been in the budget. So I think it's important for the council